Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of Yotewo podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Anthony Rose. So Anthony, you first of all, it's an honor to have you here as a guest. I've been following your journey for a while, and I remember first time we talked when I was doing my masters, and I won't ask to interview you. And since then, I've been really looking up to your startup. Well, maybe scale up actually already. Maybe let's start with a bit of. Obviously, I know your track record, quite a few products built. Maybe if you can give a bit of intro to our audience about yourself.
So, hello, I'm Anthony. I'm founder and CEO at SeedLegals. I've been around for a while. Years ago, I was with Kazaa, the music file sharing company. Before that, I was doing real-time 3D graphics. I've got a whole bunch of patents that go back years, but probably most notably, I used to head up BBC iPlayer, launched iPlayer. Then after the BBC, I built a startup, sold it, built another startup, sold it, got tired of paying lawyers, and met my co-founder, Laurent Laffy, genius angel investor and ex-VC, and built SeedLegals so that other people don't have to go to lawyers and help all startups fundraise faster and more easily.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think actually our podcast today will be structured in a way like a founder's journey. We'll go through sort of from the steps of co-founding to fundraising and everything, and we'll cover SeedLegals and I think every little bit of that. So I think maybe let's start with the first one. Let's kick off with the co-founding. How does someone know the right person to build a company with? How do you meet the first co-founder in the beginning?
Right. So that's one of the most difficult problems because, if you're hiring a Java person, you put out a job ad saying wanting Java person with 5 years experience offering this salary.
Yeah.
When you're hiring or looking for a co-founder, you can't say looking for co-founder, offering no money, risky venture, chance of failure, high, have to put up with my cranky late night emails and difficult decision making. Come back, where's everyone gone?
Yeah.
So I think mistakes that people make on the one end of the spectrum. So you've had this idea.
Yeah.
And now you obviously can't build it just yourself. So who are you going to tag team with? So the way I like to think of it is look within and see what personality you are and what you're good at. And I think 3 roles are needed for a startup, a growing business. Number one, the domain hustler, the person whose idea it was, maybe the doctor and some dialysis machine and solving this problem. And you've got this vision, change the world, but you don't know how to build it. So role number 2 is often the CTO role, the person who's going to help deliver it. And then role number 3 is the person that's going to make it a paying business, often the CFO, thing they're going to help raise investment. And now you might think, which one or more am I? And very rarely you cover all 3 of them. But more commonly, you might be, it's my idea, but I'm not a tech person, or I hate fundraising, or everyone hates fundraising. So, with my co-founder, it was originally his idea, SeedLegals. He's the ex-VC guy. I'm the tech product guy. So between that, we cover those. And we've both been around a while, so we can both cover fundraising. And that works pretty well. So the first thing is find somebody to complement what you're doing so that the 2 of you or 3 of you are stronger as a result and cover things that you aren't always good at. The other thing is often people go looking for a co-founder, but it's like going to a party saying looking for wife. It doesn't work that way. You're looking for a movie date, and maybe if it goes well, it progresses. So don't go looking for a co-founder because the bar is impossibly high. Look for a tech lead, for example, and then once it works out, you can show the path to them becoming CTO and a co-founder if it works out. But if it doesn't, then you haven't given away, a fraction of your company. And the other thing is, one of my top tips is to try and figure out the equity you give this co-founder, right? So I've had this idea, and then I meet you, and do I give you 5% equity? Do I give you 50% equity? And I'm going, it's my idea, so I've got all the equity. And you go, well, no, I'm going to build it for you, so it should be equal. And I think the problem is people over-index on the value that they've each brought to the party today.
100%.
But you should be thinking ahead 5 years' time. So imagine it's now the year 2030. You've been working together for 5 years, and we both put insane numbers of evenings in, but maybe it took a while for you to give up your day job. Or maybe I can see, you're just not as committed as me. So if we're both thinking ahead that amount of time, then we may come up today with the share split that is our best guess as to what it might be in the future. And none of us will be on a daily basis frustrated that bastard, my co-founder's got more equity or less or whatever it is than
That's true. And would you say there are any red flags that people should kind of look out for in potential co-founders?
Well, I would say that if you're having difficulty and you're struggling with your co-founder to even work out how you're going to work together at the beginning, it's not a good sign. So if someone's trying to nickel and dime you on the equity percents, or they want too much control, you just go, dude, life isn't meant to be so hard. And we haven't come even to the difficult problems.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In our case, it also was pretty interesting because my other co-founder, he was the first client of ours. And I'm the guy with an idea, and he's the operational, kind of technical guy. We have a separate CTO now, but he's the one who's managing kind of operations. And it was also super organic because he was the first guy that bought from us. And then by accident, we were working with the same lawyers in London. So they kind of put us together for lunch. And by the end of lunch, I was like, man, you need to become our co-founder.
And
that's how it worked.
Great matchmaking.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, perfect. Then the next one is founders always ask this question: what if we build a product and nobody wants it? Right? It's pretty common problem. How do you test? How would you say founders should test demand within months, within pretty quick short of amount of time?
So I think the problem is founders don't ask themselves that question. Okay. In their mind, they're fixated. We're going to build it and everyone's going to want it.
Okay.
And you sit and, sleep and whatever and go for a run, and you're imagining this thing that you want in this idealized, and you just can't imagine everyone in the world not wanting it.
Yeah.
And then you begin talking to people, you put all this effort into building it, and then you go live on your website and you're like, nobody comes. And now you just don't understand it. And the question is what to do next. And this is probably the most, apart from about to run out of money, the most stressful thing for a founder, because people are not using your products. And if you knew you just had to build these 5 more features and then they would use it, that'd be great. But you don't know that's the case. You may build these 5 features and then still nobody comes. So what you really want to do is try to validate it beforehand, because we've all been there. Any founder is, you spend months building the product and then you wake up in a cold sweat. You've got people to give you money, join your business, leave their day jobs, and no one's built it. They're coming along. And if only you'd worked out before you did that. So, what it used to be that you do agile development, MVP release soon, but you can now go even further. You can vibe code things with Lovable or Cursor and so on. And it's amazing what you can do. It's probably not going to work as a production thing, but, instead of a Figma or Canva mock-up, you can actually build something usable, and then take your phone, give it to people, or your PC, and go, well, what do you see when you get to this page? And then you see the next problem, which is on most websites, when you look at an early stage startup websites, I know immediately they're early stage because it doesn't tell me the problem they're solving for me. They're telling me how clever they are. We use AI to create automated payment solutions. I don't know what that even means. And I don't know if I want one. I mean, I don't wake up to, I want an AI automated payment. But if it said, we'll get your customers' money to you faster and pay less to the bank, now you've got my attention. So you want to create the website in a way that someone looking at it goes, man, I've got exactly that problem. And wow, you've got a solution for it. And then the formula is some testimonials, more how it works. These people have used us. Sign up now. A big sign up now button at the top. And now you iterate from there.
Yeah, 100%. Even if it's like a wait list on the website, it's also a pretty good traction for startups, because they pretty often ask me so how do I get the traction? And I have to tell them about landing pages, wait lists on landing pages. I don't know, even LOIs. There's so many ways to validate that you're building something that, even the fact that there is competition in the market, it's also kind of a bit of point that you're moving in the right direction. So that's a great answer. Okay, so the next one is also related to the product. When is actually the time when you're ready to launch, in terms of what's your view on shipping early versus holding for more features? Actually, what we just touched upon a little bit.
Right. So there's sort of two extremes. The one is you just wait for it to be perfect. Oh my God, we're not ready.
Yeah.
What if 1 million users come to our site? It'll crash. We have to build this big server thing
Yeah.
with clustered servers. So you spend ages and when you launch, it turns out nobody wants half the stuff you've built,
Yeah.
and half the stuff they do want you've not built. So that's no good.
Yeah.
The other one is mildly annoying building in public. It's a bit of a fashion.
Yeah.
And someone asked in one of the founder groups, what do you think of building in public? To which I replied, it's a bit like eating breakfast on the plane. Necessary if you have to, but mildly annoying for all the other passengers.
That's a good comparison.
And so I think what you want to do is try to get early feedback.
Yeah.
So, of course, you could build something simple. Sometimes it works, but you can certainly publicize it earlier.
Yeah.
What I like to do is I like to go even further and start with a press release. So if I'm planning a particular product feature, I might write up that we're working on this product feature and ping me if you're interested. And if no one pings me, I probably just won't build it.
Yeah.
So don't make it look like you've built it, because then people will call you and you go, actually, I've got nothing.
Yeah.
But you can explore it. The time to do that is when you are plausibly close to having it. You don't say, if you're interested in going to Mars, call me. It's like, okay, I've got no path to work how to get there.
Yeah.
But for many initial early stage products, you've built much of it, and then go and ask about it. And the more noise you make, the more interest you're going to get. And even if it's not people wanting to use it, you'll get people calling you and telling you about competitors. Or, hey, my dad's got a company that could partner to use it or can supply these goods. So making more noise just gets more interesting and unexpected and good incoming.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. I'm myself totally also on the side of shipping early, because what we did in our case in Yotewo, the way how we got initial traction before the pre-seed round, what we did was essentially we just built the front end of the app, the back end wasn't working, and we were doing this kind of like concierge on the back. So people were just coming to the website, leaving requests for, I don't know, any kind of technical talents, and we were doing all the job on the back like manually. And that was also like quite a good traction, and that allowed us to fundraise and
And by the way, that's exactly what we did at SeedLegals, because I couldn't say to customers, I'm building your legal documents, but they're like beta versions. They may not be very good. But what I could do is, building all the infrastructure for programmatically building shareholder agreements and companies' articles is very complicated.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe I'd ask all the information that wouldn't be needed because people weren't looking to those complicated rounds. So what I did is I built the front end of the website. So I took people through the questions to answer.
Yeah.
And then the legal team got all the answers, and then they went into Microsoft Word and built a Word document. And when they began screaming, Anthony, you're killing us, we can't live like this, then it was, okay, great, now let's build the back end to it.
Exactly. That's the great way. So if everyone is thinking about it, definitely give it a try. Okay, perfect. So
I call it fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Not like Terranos, but it's fake it till you make it means build a great looking front end and then do things manually to get your product live sooner than had you had to do it all in a programmatic way.
Totally agreed. Perfect. Let's move to the investment side, investment stage. So I think the common question, I didn't have this question when we started the company. We were in a bit situation where we had some traction, and we to be honest, we went straight to VCs. But some founders, they have a question: is it okay to take investment from friends and family? And what should they think about mixing, the personal money of, relatives with money that will come afterwards? How does it work? Yeah.
Right. Well, the starting point is don't take money from people who can't afford to lose money.
Yeah.
So if someone's investing 5K and they are not going to not talk to you if they lose the 5K, then that's okay. One of the wonderful things in the UK is SEIS and EIS tax savings. So if an investor invests 5K, they can deduct 5K from their income, or 2.5K from their income tax. And if your company goes bankrupt, they get loss relief. And if it does well, then they keep the shares for 3 years, they're paying no capital gains tax. And that's sometimes the difference between your business doesn't work out and still getting invited to Christmas dinner and not.
Yeah.
But, also make sure that the person who's investing understands the risks of investment. So when a bank lends you money, they're going to get 5 or 8% interest. So they need like a 98% chance of your business being able to repay them.
Yeah.
with an investment, there might be a 50% chance the company will fail.
Of course.
So if the investor is of the view they're going to get a guaranteed return because you've told them, I'll give you a 5x return in 3 years, you really want to avoid anything like that, because it's going to come back to haunt you. Things don't work as well.
True.
And if you've told the person, listen, your money's going to go to this, it shouldn't sound like a cause like a charity, but we're going to build this. We don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully we're going to sell, for a lot of money, but there's a chance it goes to zero.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, welcome aboard. And by the way, to make it much more palatable, you get, half your money as a tax deduction.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I also, like, the next one I have is on the fundraising in general. I've read this post yesterday from Notion Capital about that, the fact that right now is a very, very hard time to fundraise, and I 100% agree on that. So, and yeah, raising money is hard. How much should founders actually raise, and at what valuations would you say? Depending on the stage, of course.
Kind of an open-ended question. So I'll start by saying, one really bit of bad advice that occasionally people hear is they tell me, hey, Anthony, I spoke to an investor and they said, it's just as easy to raise a large amount as a small amount. The legals are the same. So I should raise a large amount. This is the world's worst advice because the effort to fundraise, there's legals, but we make that much easier on SeedLegals. The problem is finding investors. So if you go to investors and you say, I'm looking to raise, let's say, £2 million. The formula for dilution is you should aim to dilute maybe 15% in a funding round, which means your valuation that you're raising at is 5 times the amount you're raising. So if you're raising £2 million, it's probably at a 10 million valuation. And you go to an investor and they go, this looks great. What's the valuation? You say 10 million. Now, everyone else coming to them at a 10 million valuation has got a product that's built with paying users, doing $1 million in revenue a year. So when you say, no, we haven't built it yet, they go, dude, come back later. So you want to, look at it this way, which is, if this is time and this is the amount you want to raise, you would like to raise a big amount immediately. The problem is you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get all the investors to this big amount. It's unlikely you're going to find a ultra high net worth is just going to give you 2 million. You're more likely to have to go and find 20 angel investors. And obviously, raising a small amount is going to take less time than a big amount.
Of course.
So rather than 000 while you try and kiss all these frogs and hope for the right one, what if you just raise smaller amounts in steps? And that's the way that works, because it's very nice to go, great, in a year's time, I'll get £2 million. Between now and then, my company's stuck. I have to fund it myself, as opposed to if I could get £100,000 in a month, awesome, I can start hiring people and then I can raise a bit more. So what we call at SeedLegals agile fundraising. People are now raising ahead of a funding round with seed fast. The funding round itself is almost a dinosaur. 70% of all investments is before a round or topping up a round rather than in a round.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, also when people fundraise too much in the beginning, it causes 2 problems that no one speaks about. First of all, it's going to be very difficult for them to, actually get to show traction for the next round, and it's going to be actually difficult to get investors on the next round, because with such valuation, it's not too interesting. It's not too attractive for investors on the following rounds. So
well, exactly. And one of the problems when people raise from crowdfunding, VCs know how valuations work, so they're not going to be diddled on valuations. But naive crowd investors don't know. If you tell them the valuation's 10 million, they've looked in TechCrunch or something, and it sounds plausible. The problem is when you do your next round afterwards, and a VC goes, that 10 million valuation doesn't make sense.
Of course.
We'll invest at 5 million. That's called a down round. And your early investors have kind of already lost half their money, so they're going to be kind of pissed off.
That's a very good point. Okay, so the next one I have is on the outreach to investors. I think the most common question that I have coming from people is like, where do I find investors? And what's your advice to founders that are, looking for investors? They don't get any replies. What's your advice how to look for, investor? In our case, I'll just share a bit of story on how we did it. So my strategy was I knew that there is a certain number of VCs in the UK, a certain number of angels in the UK, and I tried to break down our startup in as many categories as possible, and then I was filtering down all the VCs that are out there based on who invests in like pre-seed marketplaces, immigrant founders, and all those kind of things, B2B as well. So, but this is what I did. To be honest, not many people know it. What's your advice to those ones who are, the ones who are looking for investors?
Sure. Great point. The biggest problem, right? So
Yeah.
the legals is easy once you found the investors.
Yeah.
I fixed that, but it's the finding the investors. So here's the way
Yeah.
I think it works, which is, you have to find investors. You don't know any investors.
Yeah.
So you do some Googling and you go on, the SeedLegals resources section where there's
Yeah.
the top 25 VCs in London, the top 25 SEIS funds.
Yeah.
And so you begin writing to all of these VCs.
Yeah.
The first thing is they probably don't write back because they get a ton of incomings.
Yeah.
And the second thing, even if you get a call with them, it inevitably ends with love what you're doing, come back later, which basically is code for either we don't know what you're doing, we can't understand it, we're not sure you can build it, or literally we can only write checks of 2 million upwards and you're just not ready for a 10 million valuation.
Yeah.
So the story of your life with VCs is come back later. And so you learn you need to go chase angel investors.
Yeah.
And in the UK, early stage rounds raising up to £500,000 are like 80% angel investors getting their SEIS tax benefits.
Yeah.
So now it's a numbers game reaching angel investors. So literally everyone is an angel investor. And so you quickly learn to hustle. You're at a party, you're telling people what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're in an elevator, you're telling people what you're doing. At family dinners, you're telling people what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, but here, LinkedIn outreach is a key way. So, you can try and use some tricks to narrow and personalize your outreach.
Yeah.
So if you write to an investor, if someone writes to me going, "Hey Anthony, I'm building X. Can I send you the pitch deck? I'm raising 200K." It's like, well, you've been lazy. You haven't done anything. I'm going to be lazy and just go to the next message.
Yeah.
But if you write to me and go, "Hey Anthony, I saw your post on this problem, and you did a video on it as well, so you're clearly passionate on that, and I saw you invested in this company, and I'm working on something that I think is using AI and is a better version of that. Can I tell you more?" The fact you've done your homework on me, you found something relevant, so I shouldn't be able to tell that you used AI to help enhance that message, or that you've written to anyone else. I should feel like I'm the only one in the world you've written to about that. And then I'm likely to follow up. So how are you going to do that? Well, you need to, of course, do a bit of research on the investor. There are tools to help now with AI on that. And you need to find some investors. So a top trick you can use, for example, is you can pick some companies in a similar space to UK companies, look on Companies House, see their last confirmation statement, which lists the names of all the shareholders, see which of those are funds or angels, and then message those. And then, of course, go look at their LinkedIn feed and see what they've posted and come up with something relevant and try and make it a story where at first you're reaching out. You just want them to get back to you and connect.
Of course.
And then you're going to tease it a little bit more. Can I tell you more? And then they might insist on a pitch deck, or you might insist, let's get on a call, and then I'll, go through the deck with you.
For sure, yeah. And would you say in these cases when investors tell you, look, sounds interesting, come back later, does it actually work, staying in touch with them and updating them about the progress of the startup? Do you think it's something that, makes sense to do?
I don't know the answer. I've seen mixed messages on that. I've had people who say it costs you very little, at least if you do this programmatically with a CRM, to keep them updated. And maybe at some point they go, "This is interesting. I've been following you." So if it's little effort to do, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't. Unless it's obvious that you've just picked someone in the wrong sector. The other thing is, there's no point writing to Index Ventures going, can I tell you about my startup? Because their minimum check size is like 10 million.
Exactly.
And they've got the hottest companies coming to them. So you have to be, with the unicorn vision and that stage. Otherwise, they don't even have a form on their website because they would have found you.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I think also it's very important to mention that the UK, like the specifics of the market is that there are not only angels, but there are SEIS funds who are also, maybe if you can maybe tell the audience about SEIS funds as well, because we fundraise from SEIS funds. And I think the way they work is a little bit different from the traditional VCs. Maybe you can touch up on that.
Yeah. Great. So here's your 101 on fundraising. So on the one hand, you've got people who might invest individually. Hey, thanks for that. I'll invest 10K. These are angel investors.
Yeah.
But another way, the problem with doing this is, the person's got a day job. They're a high net worth individual. They don't have time to look through all the startups. So what they do is they give their money to a fund. Sometimes they might give them hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds, and then the fund invests. So the fund's got an investment committee and fund managers, and they take the money from investors, they find companies, they do the due diligence, and then they make investments on behalf of the investors. And they take their fund management fees out of the pool of money the investors have put in.
True.
But there's another model which are called SEIS funds. So these are angel investors looking for their SEIS tax benefits. And here, the money can't go into a pool for the fund. It needs to go directly to the company.
Okay.
So the SEIS fund vets companies, makes decisions who to invest in, sets up what's called a nominee entity. And so the investor's money gets through the fund into the company. But because all the investors' money needs to go to the company, the SEIS funds need to make their money in a different way, which is by charging you management fees and finder fees and so on. So if you are talking to an SEIS fund and they are the biggest source of capital other than angel investors for your first or second, angel or seed round, you would expect them to charge 6 to 10% fees in various fees because that's how they pay their way.
Perfect. That's super insightful. Great. I have the next question a little bit related to what we do at our company. So after you fundraised, it's time to make the early hires. So how would you say like early stage teams should actually do the hires? Maybe any tips for non-technical founders on that are trying to build a product? Maybe just any tips that you have for them. How should they approach early hires?
Fascinating question. A few things. Number one is, even though we're 160 people at SeedLegals, I still do the final interview myself.
That's great.
And I explain to people it's as much for them to ask me questions as me to ask them questions. What the secret is, the questions they ask me are actually more important to me than the questions I ask them. Because many people ask similar questions, but some people don't have questions, which is a bad sign. Some people have got too many questions. But you want to hire for a culture fit as well as just technical. Because some people are, just not pleasant to work with. You don't want them on your team.
100%.
Others are wonderful, but not skilled. So it's a combination of skill and, are we going to be, when things go wrong, on a Slack channel, all working to a common solution. I think the other thing which is fascinating, unfortunately, you have to be a larger company to do that, is in the early stages of a company, it's such a roller coaster each time you want to hire somebody and then someone leaves. You don't have a pipeline to look ahead. Like when you're only 5 people,
exactly.
You're going to hire like one person. And they're like, oh my God, one person leaves. If 2 people leave, it's like a huge drama. Once you get to like 30 or 50 people, you start having a pipeline. So you're always hiring developers and maybe it'll flex up and like someone leaves, no problem. I've got a pipeline stretching out for 3 months. And when someone says, I can join you in 3 months, instead of being a drama like business has ended for 3 months, you go, great, someone in the pipeline in 3 months, we're now looking for a 2-month and a 6-month. So you have to switch gears to get to that point.
That's very good. That's a very good point. Would you say in general, like early stage founders, is it something they struggle with in general with like early hires or maybe finding the right people for the team? Is it something
I'm sure they struggle a lot because founders themselves initially are, often software developers or doctors or whatever. You have to relearn a new skill on hiring people, managing people, all the dramas. Originally I used to be a CTO.
Yeah.
And I was tasked, I used to work for myself actually, and then I was tasked to build a team.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was going to be hiring developers. It was going to be a 100% rational thing. We'd collaborate on, using tools like Trello on the thing. And it turned out like, person A didn't want to work with person B, and person B was great at what they're doing, but actually wanted to do, project thing C. It was like herding cats. It was mental.
Yeah.
And I had no expertise at that. And then you begin to learn that.
Yeah.
And your first hires are also really critical in a company.
Yeah.
Because if you hire a CTO and they're a Python person, you're now stuck going down the Python route. So one of the top things I did a couple of startups ago is I needed to figure out which tech stack to go with.
Yeah.
But it was like it could be one of many, but as soon as you pick one, it has to be that one.
Okay.
So what I did is I found maybe 5 or 6 potential hires.
Yeah.
And I took them all for dinner.
Okay.
And to meet and greet each other. For me, it was like actually a psych test.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see who would work well together.
Yeah.
And some people, it was clear, they were just so dogmatic, it was hard to work with. Some of them were great to work with, but weren't leaders. And so it emerged like this person was naturally, the leader, and then we chose a tech stack, and then the people who were, gravitationally pulled into that tech stack.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really great idea for, for the cost of a nice dinner for 5 or 6 people to actually get my first team and importantly know who wouldn't be right for that team.
Yeah, that's a very cool way. I'll take a note on that. Perfect. I'll also touch one thing on the investment side, just the last bit. So let's say the founder's bank account is nearly empty. So what are the smartest things a founder can do to, when the cash is running out? What do they do?
So that's one of the toughest things as a founder, right? Because you've got people to follow you on your mission.
Yeah.
There's no revenue.
Yeah.
You can't fundraise. You've been unable to, and now the amount's going down.
Yeah.
And initially you fundraise, maybe you've got 18 months revenue. It seems like, in the bank, it seems like forever. Then it gets to 12 months and you begin to like, okay, I've still got forever.
Yeah.
And then it's 6 months and so on. So your problem is, and here's the top tip, which is, let's say your remaining runway is 6 months.
Yeah.
If you don't have revenue, if you reduce your burn rate by 30%, you've bought yourself another 2 months.
Yeah.
If you've got 3 months of runway left and you reduce, in other words, you fire a third of the people, you've bought yourself 1 month more. And if you've got a month of runway left, everyone's on 30 days anyway, you're dead anyway. So what you want to do is you want to make definitive course changes, often means reducing burn rate and expenses really early on. Because if the train is approaching the mountain at high speed, you've got no more options. You're out of options. So, if you've got less than 6 months runway, you need to be rapidly, reducing your burn rate to keep it dropping below that, because you can't really fundraise in a lot less than that. And the other thing is, as soon as investors see that you're about to run out of money, firstly, it's a big negative for them, the fact that it's gotten to that stage. They know that their money is going to rapidly be used up and you're going to have to fundraise again. So you have to show that your burn rate is lower, or you will find it hard to get investment.
That's a very, very good point. Also, I think it's important to know for all the founders that the golden rule is to have 6 months runway at the point when you close the next round. Is it, you're saying the right way? Or
it's a luxury
to
have, but it may turn out that it gets a lot closer than that in many cases.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay, perfect. And just the final question, Anthony, just to wrap up things. What's one tough decision that you've made as a founder throughout your career, maybe in SeedLegals or in general? What's one tough decision that you had? Might be related to people, might be related to, pivot, might be related to anything.
I don't think there's one. I mean, you want to press me for one, but I can't think of a particular one.
Okay.
Founder life is filled with decisions on a daily basis. Do you launch in this new market? Do you do this product or instead of this product feature? Do you hire this person or not?
Yeah.
I think if you love making decisions, founder life is good for you. If you hate making decisions, don't be a founder. I love making decisions. The good thing about decisions is you can usually unmake them or remake them if you screw up. Sometimes you can't, but it's the thrill of you've got to make a decision. You can't not make it. If you're not making a decision, is ultimately your company's dead because you're just not embracing new technologies and new markets. So you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you start jumping on every thing and say yes to it, then you're also dead because your team will get burnt out and they'll go, you have no strategy. So it's a tricky one. But I think one interesting thing, and I've been around for a while, is sometimes things that seem like wrong decisions or failures thrust you in a path that in retrospect seem like a good thing.
Good decision.
So for example, at SeedLegals, I met my co-founder at a party. The party was held by an investor in my previous startup who made some money in that startup and separately had a party and invited these other people and had, you know, the fate not brought us together in that way, I wouldn't have met my co-founder. And so there are many of these little things in life that I think that you know, the fact that should I have sold that business or not, and if I had, then this wouldn't have happened, and so on. So I love that sort of woven thing. And at one instance, it looks like a fail, but actually at another instance, it looks like a success. You know, maybe you had a company that wasn't working out, you folded it, you started a new one. The new one is massive, and had you kept the old one, you'd still be struggling. So you can't predict these, and you know, like many things in life, it's a combination of luck and fortune.
True.
Sometimes you make your own luck by being more active, networking more, making more decisions. If you can help luck, that's amazing. But it's hard to escape the fact that a lot of it is just luck. So.
That's true. Perfect. That's a great answer, Anthony. Thanks so much for coming. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much.